All right. Hello, everybody. Looks like we are live. Thanks for joining us tonight for our property inspections, what to know when buying a home webinar. We have Tonika Johnson and Phil Gould with us tonight. We also have Sarah Ware, who's going to be on call for us during our Q&A section as a incredible realtor. But just to kind of give a little preamble to what we're talking about tonight. We have over 30,000 members at the Chicago Bungalow Association and receive all kinds of, hundreds of phone calls weekly and emails from our members all over the city. And we track the issues that you guys call in about. So we actually know what you're struggling with, what you're frustrated about. It helps us come up with content for these webinars as well. In terms of homeowners who call us shortly after they've bought their homes and they're disappointed with how something's gone and they're frustrated with their inspectors or they don't know what they could have done to prevent certain things. The vast majority of those calls that we get and emails are from the South and West side. So we especially wanted to focus on that this evening and figure out how we can best serve our members. That said, this is going to be relevant to all of our members, no matter where you live in the city. So we brought in Tonika Johnson. We work with Tonika regularly. She's our artist in residence, among many other roles at the Bungalow Association. We knew the story of her home. She owns a bungalow and had heard about some of the issues that she had. So she was kind enough to join us this evening. And we also wanted to have Phil come in and talk to us about what an inspector is actually going to be doing when they're doing inspections, what that's going to look like, what he could catch, what he couldn't catch. Sometimes legally, he's not able to look at certain things, right? So we want to demystify a bunch of that this evening. We're going to do a Q&A at the end of the session tonight. And you can look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little double word bubble that says Q&A. Please type any questions you have in that area. Don't put it in the chat because we won't be looking at that. I'm not even entirely sure you're able to put it in the chat. So make sure you put that in Q&A. And please keep in mind, we're going to answer all of these at the end. So also sometimes people will type in something and react to whatever's being said at the time, but the context will be lost by the end of the session. So just make sure your questions are clear that way. So we're recording this as well, and you can watch it. It's on Facebook Live right now. It will stay on our Facebook page as well. You can also get that link on our website. And if you signed up for the session tonight, for this workshop tonight, you can also get it in an email that we're going to send out as a follow-up. Any other materials that might come up during this webinar as well, we're going to put in that email. So you can look out for that. Don't get too panicked if you miss something or anything. All right, I think that's most of what I had. Again, we have Sarah Ware, who's going to be in the background. She is our immediate past president of the Chicago Bungalow Association Board and a rock star realtor. And I want to formally introduce Tonika and Phil now. So Tonika Johnson's a photographer, social justice artist, and lifelong resident of Inglewood. As a trained photojournalist and former teaching artist, Tonika's artistic legacy has gained international recognition. Her Folded Map project visually investigates disparities among, quote, map twins, which are Chicago residents who live on opposite ends of the same streets across the city's racial and economic divides, and brings them together to have a conversation. Since 2018, Tonika has transformed Folded Map into an advocacy and policy influencing tool that invites audiences to open a dialogue about how we are socially impacted by racial and institutional conditions that segregate Chicago. Her newest project, Inequity for Sale, highlights the living history of Greater Inglewood homes sold on land sale contracts in the 50s and 60s. She's also co-founder of the Inglewood Arts Collective, and the Resident Association of Greater Inglewood. Tonika lives in a 1918 Chicago bungalow in Inglewood. And to respond to her experiences and other questions that we've gotten from homeowners that we work with, we have Phil Gould. Phil has been a full-time inspector since 2012 with over 2,500 inspections completed. He also was the inspector on our wonderful staff member Angela's home. So thank you. Also a bungalow, of course. He's a certified member of the American Society of Home Inspectors, ACI, and has earned the designation of Inspector by Review. He lives in a 1925 stucco bungalow in Forest Park. Right. then I think without further ado, Tonika, if you'd like to sort of kick off your experience slide deck.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can get started on my story. 1 second. I want to go slideshow. Sorry. Oh my God.
I know I do this every time, I swear. Yeah,
It's
from beginning. You want to go from beginning, far left.
Yes, but I don't want it to be timed. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. Carl, if you could just let me know, is there a gray block that you see in front of my presentation?
It looks normal to me. It looks totally.
You don't see any?
It's clear.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Tonika Johnson. I created a project called Folded Map in 2018, and that project explores Chicago segregation by bringing residents together to have a conversation who live on the same street, similar addresses, but in racially and economically different neighborhoods that are 15 miles apart, like the ones you see here, Bridget and Carmen. And I brought these residents together to talk about how they came to live in their neighborhoods, what they are missing in their neighborhoods, what they like to see in their neighborhoods, and the big adult question, how much did their house cost, or how much do they pay for rent? So right now, I would just like to share just a clip of the Map twins, Bridget and Carmen, answering the question of how much did your house cost? Because I think that will help set the tone for how personally invested I am in the issue of housing inequities, and home ownership in general. Now, I just hope that I shared the sound.
So it's amazing how much Chicago has shifted just in the last couple of years. And when I bought my house 7 years ago, I feel like there was still, Rogers Park was still somewhat affordable in comparison to a lot of Chicago neighborhoods. So I knew I wanted something under $400,000 was what I was looking for. Yeah. I know you're like, well, hold on a second. And Carmen, is a good family, so we talk about do you know how much it costs? No, but I believe it probably was $30,000, you know, but in 74, that was a lot of money, but 30,000, and I think it's probably worth a lot more than that now, but never know.
So as you all can see, my project kind of illuminates the disparities between these new two map twin neighborhoods, because if you were to fold Chicago's map at its 0 point, those are the neighborhoods that would touch each other, Inglewood and Rogers Park. But this question reveals kind of the disparity, not only in housing value, but also the resources that are allocated to homeowners in these neighborhoods as well. So I want to just kind of let you all know my personal investment in this issue. And at the same time that I was doing presentations about Folded Map, as well as working on my current project that's done in partnership with Chicago Bungalow Association called Inequity for Sale, I was in the process of becoming a new homeowner myself in Chicago's Inglewood neighborhood. And this is a photo of my closing day. It's a photo of my beautiful bungalow that I hope isn't obstructed in view by a gray bar. So I was really happy. And not to mention, my closing date was the week of Juneteenth. So it was really important for me as a Black woman to be closing on my home at the same time as we were celebrating Juneteenth. So I move into this home. I start doing all of the decorating, getting the paint, picking the paint, everything else. And then within a couple of weeks, this is what I discover as a problem. And I kind of want to minimize, I'm sorry, because I don't want you all to. So I move in, and within a couple of weeks, I turn on the water in my bathroom. First floor bathroom. My home has 3 bathrooms, 1 full bathroom in the basement. We all are bungalow owners, so we kind of know and understand how this setup is. I have a full basement in the bathroom. I have a full basement on the first floor, and I have a half bathroom on the 3rd floor, which is the attic that was renovated into 2 bedrooms. And I turn the water on the 1st floor, and then I notice this. This is my basement. This is the room that is off of the laundry room and next to where the water heater is. And every time I turned on the bathroom sink on the 1st floor, this water would just start pouring down. And I had no idea what was going on. So I called a plumber that I had gotten acquainted with, who been referred to me. A friend of mine said he was great. He was very knowledgeable, affordable. And this is what he discovered. After he told me that the only way for him to understand what was going on is to open up the walls underneath the sink of my 1st floor bathroom, as well as to open up the walls, cut out the drywalling in the laundry room in the basement, so that he could see what was going on. So of course, to my horror, I have not been in this house a whole month. And now I have to have the walls cut open to understand why water is leaking to the basement. And this is what the plumber found. He found that this pipe was not aligned right, and that there was a hole in the pipe that was on the ceiling in the basement. And he said that it was caulked with a glove. And once I moved into the home and started using the water regularly, using the 1st floor bathroom, that the pressure from the water removed the glove that was stuffed in that hole, caulked in that hole. And this is where some of the water was coming from, this hole. In addition to that, at the same time that the water was coming down to my basement, the basement bathroom, that toilet was also getting clogged. And I had to have this same plumber come out to my house to unclog the toilet enough times for him to question what was really going on. So he brought in another plumber that uses the camera to go through the pipes. And this is what they discovered, in addition to the 1st floor bathroom issue.
Could you repeat that, please?
Whoever did the plumbing work, they tied it to the wrong line. They tied it to the line that goes to the catch basin, not the one that goes in the street, not the main sewer that goes in the street. My camera here is right here.
Wow.
Right here.
And it's supposed to just continue to go to the,
It's not supposed to go back here. It's supposed to go to the front of the house. Whoever tied in the toilet, they tied it in to the wrong line. They tied it to the catch basin line. The catch basin, the line to the catch basin catches the floor drain. It catches the laundry and the kitchen, in the kitchen. This is why they call it a catch basin. It catches the grease. It catches the grease in here and the water goes out.
so
the
that's what
city
all the
main.
clogs come, because all of that is,
So this right here is probably full. They bolt this down. Can we see if we can open this? Yeah.
So they did open the catch basin. It was filled. The camera that he routed through the toilet in the basement bathroom did appear back there. And yeah, so that was the discovery that I had, that in order to repair this plumbing issue, I was going to have this pipe rerouted to the main line instead of the catch basin. So basically every few months, maybe 4 or 5 months, I have to have the catch basin cleaned out or just checked because I'm constantly getting clogs. So of course, this is all within the first month of me becoming a new homeowner. And I was thinking, how could I have known about this? Because the plumber had to open up the walls. I had to have all of these issues happen. So that got me thinking about my inspection. In addition to thinking about my inspection, I encountered another surprise issue. And that was an HVAC issue. So as I said, it was Juneteenth when I closed for my home. So we were in the throes of summer. So of course I am turning on this central air unit that I know I have. And of course we have bungalows. So we know that it's always not as cool on those renovated, the floor the renovated attics are on. So I knew that it was going to be a slight temperature difference. However, I wasn't getting any cool air and I was curious as to why. So I had an HVAC person come to help me figure this out. And I'm going to share with you what they discovered, as well as them having to tell me, we have to open up the walls. So again, all of this happened that summer and I had been in there 2 months. I had to have my walls open for the plumbing and now the HVAC issue. So I'm going to share with you video of what the HVAC person discovered. Oh, you can't really hear it. So what he basically showed me was that this vent right here is fake. It's just there for show. It's not a real vent. And the vent, he discovered the actual vent is inside that little hole. Okay. And I'm going to share with you. So I had a fake vent. And he had to cut holes to find out where the real vent was, so that he could make a connection. But in addition to that, he wanted to check inside of the walls to see how my ducts looked. And this is also what he discovered. He was explaining to me that this is also some of the reason why I'm not getting any of the cool air from my central air unit. It was ripped up, and it wasn't the best quality. And so this is what had to get replaced. This is also when I was informed that I did not have any insulation upstairs. And my assumption as a new homeowner was that I had insulation, not only just in the actual remaining attic, but I thought the side of my walls had insulation. That was what I thought came with the purchase of a fully renovated home, is that it's insulated. And that's when I was told that I didn't have any insulation up here. So of course, this shoddy ductwork, no insulation, all of that was contributing to me not getting any air circulation at all. And so I really wanted to participate in this webinar so I could share my experience. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. Sorry. How do I hate these tech issues that happen when you're trying to.
What do you need, Tonika?
I'm trying to stop sharing my screen.
Oh, I think it's
could-
up by the share area up top. Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
oh, wait. Oh, I just lost it.
Yeah,
Okay, here we go. I'm not sharing anymore, right?
right. You're not sharing.
Okay,
anymore.
perfect. Okay,
And
sorry.
the gray bar was not on any of the slides, just
Oh,
so you know.
perfect. Yes, so I was really excited to participate in this webinar because I wanted to share my experience of, surprise issues, as well as some of the assumptions I came into home purchasing a fully rehabbed, quote unquote, fully rehabbed home. And I wanted to help use my experiences for Phil to dispel some myths, shed some light on what I experienced, and as we joked in our prep, use this as a therapy session for all of those who have went through something similar, and also to kind of uplift the fact that Chicago Bungalow Association was a great supporter in my process of getting through this, and giving me the resources and information to kind of, get the repairs that I needed. So I want to invite Phil to come, and if you'd like to respond, or if you'd like to go into your presentation, but definitely feel free to use what I have shared to help educate others on what we should know, what the assumptions that we come to this home purchasing process with, and that we should question, but definitely feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, and before you jump in, Phil, I just want to make a couple comments during that. To Tonika, to your point about sharing trauma, like I had to clear out a bunch of the sort of like acknowledge and clear out a lot of the comments. It's just people being like, me too, I spent $8,000 on that. Like everyone's just, I mean, it's traumatic, for real. And then also inspectors, if you're not going to do a thorough job, definitely don't agree to inspect a photojournalist's home, because they will video
I didn't even
everything you
all,
did, and then have a webinar about
all
it.
of the issues. I didn't even share all of
I know. And then also Phil, I don't think the audience could see, but Phil's face was a face, like a horrified face, like literally biting nails through some of what you were showing. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your response as well, Phil. And with that, I'll be quiet as well now, but just wanted to add that in.
Thank you.
Share your screen whenever you're ready. Down at the bottom is the little button for you. And you're on mute still, Phil.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, super. Thank you. I'll share my screen. And it'll some comments will tie into what Tonika said kind of as we go through. So I guess we'll tackle it that way. So we'll talk about the home inspection and what to expect. And a little about my background. I got my home inspector license in 2007, and then I joined the American Society of Home Inspectors, which I think is something that tells you if it's a good inspector. The economy was slow, and so I decided not to become an inspector jump out full-time right away. And then I became a full-time inspector in 2012. And the majority of the homes that I've done have been older homes, including bungalows, and a lot of them starting out for me were on the south and west side. And I had a similar experience where when I would look up a home online and, to get ready for the inspection, and I would happen to see what the price of it was. And if it was in a south or west side, it just was startling, what the price of the home was. I've been a bungalow owner since 2006, and in the spirit of Tonika sharing, I thought that even a home inspector can be surprised by a few things. So I didn't do my own home inspection. I hired an experienced inspector that I knew, and then we did it together, or I shadowed him. And one of the tests that we do is turn on water at multiple fixtures to find out if the galvanized supply pipes that we all have, how soon those would need to be replaced. And we did those tests and saw that, that it was fairly imminent. And then I would do a load of laundry in the morning, and my wife would jump in the shower and she would yell down, "Turn off the washer." So we moved up the replacement of the supply pipe sooner than we thought that we might. And then as part of that, we also replaced the lead service line from the meter to the curb. And then a few months later, so we moved in the winter in January, and then I think it was in March or April, we got some water through a foundation crack, and we discovered that it was behind, we have radiators in our basement, and the crack was directly behind the radiator, so you couldn't really see it until you knew it was there and you knew to look at it. So we got that repaired, and then a couple of months after that, the temperature pressure relief valve, which is a valve on the side of the water heater, for us leaked, which was not a major expense. And then other repairs to the bungalow, like we've all had. Probably a lot of people have a similar list. We replaced the brick chimney, increased ventilation and insulation. These were all things that we knew we were going to need to do. Replaced the boiler, added central air because we didn't have it when we moved in. Replaced gutters. We had one spot of a wall that was damp that we noticed when we did the inspection, and we figured out it was from a downspout that was too close to the foundation. And then we regraded some soil that was sloping toward the home, which was bringing water in, and then replaced our front steps. So the qualities of a good inspector, they need to be licensed by the state. So that can be something that you can check out, or have your realtor make sure that they are licensed and that it's current. And then membership in an organization like the American Society of Home Inspectors, which I'm a member of, or there's also another one, InterNACHI. These organizations require 20 hours of continuing education every year. And the state of Illinois requires 12 credits every 2 years. So it's, quite a bit more education just to keep your membership in one of those groups. And then you want to look for somebody that's experienced in the type of home that you're buying. And you want to make sure that they're not rushed or not too scheduled in, and be willing to exceed the minimum standards of Illinois. The standards for home inspection in Illinois is actually quite low. Like an example, you can do a representative sample of outlets and windows, which is 1 per room. And of course, the outlet or window that you don't test is the one that's faulty or that needs repair. So hopefully any good inspector would do as much as they can. Some outlets might be behind a bed or a dresser or something that you can't really get to. And then you want someone that's willing to answer questions during the inspection and also after you're in the home. It's not unusual for me to get calls and for me to even stop over and look at something. There was an instance where a roofing contractor wanted to replace a roof that I had said was okay. So I went back just to reassure the person that the roof still had some life left. And then how buyers can help. Attend the inspection if you can, and then follow the lead of the inspector. Myself, I like to have people with me as we go through it and we see things together. Some inspectors would rather go through the house by themselves and then provide a summary at the end. Either of those is whatever they would like to do. Extended family members are welcome, but it's best if they don't turn things on or operate things. And then the buyer can feel free to point out anything. Sometimes people say, did you see that shower upstairs? And I just hadn't, been upstairs to see that yet. But I have a notepad that I carry and I make a note about it when somebody points something out, and then I make sure I see it. Some things that the home inspection doesn't cover. It's not a code inspection. Some people might think it might be that. We are familiar with building codes, but we're not able to enforce them. That's up to the city of Chicago or the various municipalities. And that's because codes can vary from town to town and over time. And then also components such as outlets aren't required to be updated when codes change. So that would be the kind of thing that we would mention, like, hey, in the future, you should swap out these ground fault circuit interrupters at the kitchens because, they just never got changed over time. And then low voltage wiring isn't something that we look at unless it's dangerous, if it's hanging down where someone could be injured. And then like Tonika had mentioned, we don't open walls or move insulation or remove it. So in some cases, we're not able to see things. Or if the walls in a basement are finished with drywall, in that case, we would carefully look for staining or evidence of water intrusion, but we wouldn't cut open the walls. And then there's some services that are done either by others or as an add-on, like sewer scoping is something that plumbers can do, radon testing, and then wood destroying insect. Those are all things that aren't necessarily part of the primary inspection, but that can be added. So for there are some limitations possibly. So one could be the hatches to crawl spaces and attics might be too small to fit through. And these are the general requirements. Attic hatches should be 24 by 30, crawl space hatches. That's not to say that myself and other good inspectors aren't getting into hatch covers that are smaller than this, because a lot of times they're between joists, which that's about 14 inches. And sometimes most of the time we can squeeze up there because there's things to see. Such as the things that Tonika talked about in her attic. Finished surfaces or insulation, maybe covering foundation walls. Again, we try to, tell as much as we can. Sometimes you can see evidence of water underneath basement stairs where you can see the stud walls. Or there may be stored items in basements that block things. Again, if I feel like I need to, or if it's something not too heavy, then I'll move things in the basement and then make sure I put them back, where they were. Electric panel covers can be painted to the wall. I do carry a utility knife if I can carefully score it, and I ask permission from the listing agent if they're there, or ask the buyer's agent to ask the listing agent if we can cut it off. In other cases, the panel just can't come off. And then for roofs, they may be too steep or too high to walk on, in which case it can either be done with a tall ladder or a camera pole or a drone. Heat exchangers for furnaces are usually not something we can see. And the ductwork for heating and cooling is usually not visible. In the case of Tonika, I would have been able, assuming I was able to get in the attic and it was a big enough attic hatch, I would have noted that the ductwork was not insulated. Ideally, it would be rigid metal, which it sounds like is what was eventually installed. The kind of ductwork that we saw is sometimes used for branches. So like imagine a straight rectangular metal duct going across the top of the attic, and then branches coming off for individual rooms, and they might have been that kind of ductwork that's flexible, except it would have been insulated. So that would have been something to mention. And then the noting that the insulation was what you would want when the home was built, you know, in the 1920s, and building codes have changed, or standards have changed for how much insulation you would want. So it would usually be quite a bit more. So that's often something that gets mentioned in an inspection report more as an FYI, that the person, you know, might want to do that. And in some cases, insulation is just completely missing. That's maybe more of a newer construction home, or if something, you know, was completely rehabbed and they just didn't put in insulation at all, and you can see the underside of the drywall. So that would definitely be something that the seller should potentially fix. And then any limitations, it's a good thing for the buyer to think about, is it in your budget if repairs are needed to areas that weren't accessed? Like if there really is a foundation crack, are you completely stretched to get into the home, or is there a little bit of room? There's also times where there's times where I might ask a person, you know, do you have a budget for remodeling, or that you're thinking about making changes to, and then just kind of keep a note of it as we go. You know, are you getting close to where your budget is? Like if you need a new furnace or a new air conditioner, like that. And then you might ask the seller to make any areas accessible. So then the inspector can come back, you know, like a week later, or if you wanted to have that done at the final walkthrough. And then some misperceptions, which I see this quite a bit. So the term gut rehab is not legally defined, or there's not a general understanding of what that is. So there could be components that weren't replaced if they were in reasonable condition, or they were just skipped. So think as examples, like it may have the original lead water service pipe, or it could have cloth wiring in the attic, or insulation not added to attics or walls. These are you know, things that, you know, we definitely want in a rehab. I think you have a higher standard that you should be able to say, well, this is what I want, and it should have been a new furnace, or should have been a new air conditioner. We want people to at least know that. So I would occasionally go get the buyer, if they aren't with me at that time, and, you know, show them the furnace and say, well, this furnace is 10 years old, just so you know, it's got some life left in it, but it's not new. And then some other things, an inspector does not check for permits with the local municipality. So we do look to see if, especially in rehabs, if the work seems to have been done in a generally professional manner, or if we suspect that permits might not have been used. So like if the, you know, the city of Chicago is as strict as they come in terms of decks and porches and balconies and things like that. So if at the beginning and walking around the outside and the deck doesn't look quite right, or the balcony, then that you know, makes me much more suspicious as we move inside. You know, was the plumbing done correctly, or electrical, or kind of all comes together. And then sometimes people say, well, the house, you know, passed code, or the building inspector for the city said, you know, that everything was fine, but they don't necessarily always revisit. So it's good to have a home inspector come in, just to, you know, because of all the things that we look at. So the benefits of an inspection, it's an unbiased and complete view of the home, all the items in need of repair, as well as good things. I try to not make it just a completely, you know, downer, you know, long list of everything, and keep it in context of, you know, this is fixable, or this isn't terribly expensive. This might be a few $100s for an electrician. But the other thing is, an inspection may reveal a major issue, like a structural foundation, which we can get to we'll get to that in a little bit. Or there was a situation where a home had 2 furnaces and 2 air conditioners and the water heater, and all 5 of those things were past their useful life, such that you know, the buyer was looking at more money than they really wanted to spend. So they ended up you know, not moving forward with that transaction. An inspection also provides a written document to help either negotiate repairs if it's something you might do. And home inspectors don't get into who pays for what. We let the realtor and attorney and buyers, you know, kind of work through that. We just want to give you a sense of you know, what's important. We can provide ages and expected useful lives for components like furnace, air conditioner, like I mentioned, just so that you're aware of that. Like some people might, you know, plan to replace the kitchen as soon as they move in, but it's good to know that, you know, one of these things is something that you might need, like a new air conditioner. So just set the money aside and then, you know, remodel the kitchen after that. And then I also like to walk around with the client and talk about where the utility shutoffs are, the furnace filter size, location, hose, spigot shutoffs, you know, just things that are just helpful for somebody to know, how a thermostat works, or that type of thing. So here's a general list of what an inspection might cover, and then I'll have a few examples of the types of things that might fall into this type of thing. So for structure, most cracks in especially a poured concrete basement, which is what a lot of bungalows are. My basement happens to be concrete block, but most cracks are seepage, but aren't really likely to be structural. And I'm not a structural engineer, but I've attended a number of classes taught by structural engineers, and here's some of the tips that they had given us. So if a crack is vertical, not very wide, and not out of plane, in other words, the left and right side of it are more or less lined up across the crack, then that's generally not a structural concern. If cracks are horizontal, that's almost always bad. If a crack is wider, even a vertical crack, if it's wider than a ½ inch or is larger at one end or the other, that could indicate something. Or sister cracks, either at corners or opposite walls. That might be if that's the case, then it would probably be time to bring in a structural engineer, you know, depending on the severity. And then in some cases, there's settlement of a foundation due to soil erosion or improper installation. And this is where the walls, maybe even the masonry walls above the foundation are out of plane, or the bricks are cracking or in a fairly bad shape, then that's where things could get quite expensive. And also, if a room was changed during remodeling, could cause some structural issues. And I tend not to call for structural engineers right away because they can be fairly expensive. And if it's something that I think is needed, then I would say that it's needed, but it's generally usually the foundation contractors can take care of things. And then in some cases, bungalows have crawl spaces or maybe additions that have crawl spaces. So we want those to be relatively dry, and modern building science wants things like vents to the exterior covered, a plastic membrane on the soil, so you're not getting the soil gas up into the house, and then insulate the walls instead of insulation in the ceiling of the crawl space. And there's a number of companies that do that crawl space remediation. At the exterior, it's always important for grading and walkways to slope away. Like I had mentioned earlier, that I had soil added so that the water coming out of my gutters didn't go straight into the house. And then also you can, if it's concrete along the side of the house, you can seal that with roofing cement or caulking until you can replace the walkway and have it slope away. And then also with the exterior, I tend to think about masonry walls with bungalows, although ours is stucco, and then there could be some wood siding or other types of siding. But there's always the window frames where you can have peeling paint, which can allow water entry, repair and replace anything rotted as needed. And then masonry walls usually need repair sooner or later. And I try to give people a sense of, how long that might be. And one thing that is quite common for Chicago common bricks is for the wrong mortar to be used if it's not done by someone that knows what they're doing. Generally, the mortar should be softer than the brick, and the correct mortar tends to be, has more lime in it. It tends to be more tan or kind of a brown. And the wrong kind of mortar would be similar to concrete. So it's more gray or maybe a silver. And what can happen is that the bricks get damaged, if it's the wrong kind of mortar. So that's something we would want to point out. And then the steel lintels are supports over windows and doors for masonry walls. And as they rust, they expand, which can cause stair step cracking. So that's another thing we look for and point out. For roofs, we look for signs of wear with asphalt shingles, cupping, curling, granule loss. And an interesting thing that I wouldn't have known, the south and west sides of roofs wear out more quickly. So it's a way that you can tell kind of when things are starting to get there. A lot of people ask, well, can I just put a new layer of shingles over this first one, which is usually possible, although it's not ideal. There is the disposal cost associated with it. And then unlike the expected useful lives that we like to give for furnaces, air conditioners, and water heaters, for a roof, we can't tell you exactly how long it'll last or the age unless we can, find a bundle of shingles somewhere. But we do try to put the age of the roof into one of these categories, either if it's new, because we know it's new, or first third, middle third, last third, or replace it soon if it's getting toward the end of its last third of life, or time to replace it right away. And then low slope roofs are harder to predict. And then these are just some examples. 3-tab shingles usually last about 20 years. You can look at your house tonight or tomorrow if you don't know what kind of roof. Or in architectural shingles, these are more dimensional. They have more asphalt in them, so they tend to last longer, 30 or even longer. So for plumbing, we look for any leaking or unprofessional work. And Tonika's example with what happened with her reminded me of a condo that we lived in we had to have our bathroom tub rotted every 4 to 6 weeks. And we probably did that 5 or 6 times. And the plumber kept coming back and saying, you know, I shouldn't be back here. I know you. My nephew goes to the high school across the street, and, you know, you shouldn't keep having this issue. There's probably something wrong with your drain pipe. And we really didn't know what to do with it. We had a new toilet installed, and to do that, they had to relocate the supply pipe. It had to be lower. And when they opened up the wall right next to the supply pipe for the toilet was the main sewer stack, and a big hole that was the size of a salad plate, probably, or maybe a little smaller than that. So we figured out, you know, what was happening, and as soon as that got repaired, then you know, everything started functioning properly. So the proper materials are needed for plumbing, you know, like if it's PVC pipe for drainage or cast iron. There's a type of black plastic pipe that has a long, complicated scientific name, but it's known as ABS. And it's prohibited because it's known to deteriorate and fail like within 5 years or sometimes a little bit longer. And I did an inspection for someone where in the crawl space they had used this ABS pipe, and it's, you know, was more than likely going to fail, and they wouldn't really know about it because it was out of sight in the crawl space. So one thing Illinois is starting to allow is plastic pipe for supply piping. So that's a fairly new thing that we're starting to see. And then another thing we're looking for plumbing is proper installation. Whenever there's a basement bathroom, I'm trying to figure out where it is in relation to the main sewer stack, or if there is a waste line ejector pit, which is sort of like a catch basin, only it's it has pipes that come up out of the top of it, and it's located inside the inside the basement, and as opposed to the catch basin outside. So yeah, going to the catch basin was not a good thing. A quick history on catch basins. So 100 years ago, we cooked differently, and people would generally use more oils and lard and things like that. And then they would just dump it straight down the kitchen sink, and it would cause everything else to not flow well for drainage in the home. So they would route the kitchen only to the catch basin, and then food particles would drop to the bottom of the catch basin. The soap and oil from the kitchen sink would float on the top, and then the water in the middle, which is relatively clean, would connect to the rest of the drain system and then go out through the home. Sometimes roof drainage also goes to a catch basin, which kind of helps to clean it out a little bit. And then you would just pay a plumber to clean out your catch basin, you know, every few years. And then now we don't really cook the same way, and it's not as necessary to clean the catch basin out as often. And in some cases, when a home is remodeled, the catch basin is just completely abandoned, so that plumbing from the kitchen just connects straight into the main sewer system. And then we look to make sure that drain pipes slope properly, because if they slope too much or not enough, then that can cause clogs. And then often ejector pits and pumps are not piped correctly in a basement. More things for plumbing. Lead service lines are quite common. Easily more than half of all the inspections I've done have had lead service lines. And if you're curious to see if you have one, you can look and see if you have a bulge similar to what's shown here. Or you could very carefully, with the edge of a screwdriver blade, just poke it, And if it's flexible or gives, then it'll tell you that it's a lead pipe. And then another interesting thing is some older homes in Chicago don't have water meters. And it's my understanding that you can save about 30% if you just ask the utility to install a meter. Galvanized water lines. This is actually one from my own house. So you can see that we were getting about a third of the size of the interior of the pipe able to flow. And it just becomes restricted from mineral buildup inside the pipe. And it's the pipes for hot water are usually worse because it accelerates, temperature accelerates the process. And then horizontal pipes are more subject to minerals depositing as the water's flowing through than vertical. And generally, good plumbers, when you're having issues, will try to fix kind of part of the problem as you go. So like they may say, why don't we just do the horizontal pipes that we can see in the basement because they're the easiest to get to, and then, you know, call us back in a couple months if you're not happy, because that may solve it at least for a time. And then you do the vertical risers, you know, that go to the bathrooms or the kitchen, you know, do those later. For electrical, we look at the size of the service. 100 amps is the minimum with modern standards, and that's what most single family homes have. A lot of electricians would say that you need to upgrade to 200 amps, but generally a bungalow that uses natural gas for heating and for the dryer and for cooking and the water heater, 100 amps should be fine. We look to see if it's fuses or circuit breakers. I see a lot of fuses in older buildings, like along Lakeshore Drive, either on the north side or south side, so built in the 60s. And fuses aren't inherently dangerous, but breakers are more convenient. And also fuse panels tend to have fewer circuits. So if we see a fuse panel, we recommend it be upgraded, just as a, you know, part of maintenance. And then the wire should match the breaker sizes. If a wire is too small for the breaker, then the breaker wouldn't know to shut off if the wire is carrying too much current. And then it's very rare to see this, but branch wires should not be solid aluminum, which is a fire hazard. Those have pretty much all been replaced, I think, but that's since the late 60s to the mid 70s. That's something we look for. And then more with electrical knob and tube wiring. That's an example of this. If you may poke your head in your attic and see some of this up there. It's something that you would want to get replaced if you have it. And most insurance companies won't cover a loss from knob and tube. And then junction boxes, it's quite common to see this. These are easy repairs. A junction box cover is, you know, a couple dollars. And then covers for outlets are also easy for a homeowner to put in. For heating, there's different types of furnaces and boilers, so they have different materials for venting. So that's something we want to pay attention to. There was a masonry wall that was severely deteriorated because someone took a mid-efficiency furnace and just put the pipe out the sidewall, and there's much too much moisture in the flue gases, so that was damaging the pipe. And then a typical life for a furnace is 20 years, and typical life for a boiler is 30. And then here's some examples of the things that we can look at on an inspection, but you could also do this just by hand. Essentially, the radiator on the left is what it should look like, where heat is throughout the radiator. And then the one on the right has air trapped in the top of it. So it's just a matter of bleeding the air out when the system's going. And I guess over time, a bungalow owner finds that it's that one radiator in whichever room that they always have to bleed every year. But if a radiator's not hot, that's probably why. And then for steam radiators where they have a one pipe system, I think steam is less common in bungalows, but it could be there. You want the radiator to pitch slightly toward the supply pipe, which you can check with a basic level. And then, oh, and I should back up. So in the case of here, I'll come back to heating. So in the case of Tonika, when I'm testing a forced air furnace, I turn on the furnace and let it go for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I go around with a thermal camera to all the heating supply registers, or every room should have a register, that's supplying warm air. So if there was just a completely dead vent, then that would come up as part of an inspection, just because there's no air coming out of this, in which case we'd look inside it or see if it was. I haven't seen one of these myself, but I've heard stories where they just screw the vent cover onto a wall that isn't even cut open behind it. But anyway, that would be something that we would find. So that's how it's tested on the heating side. And then I would report sometimes a half bathroom doesn't have a heat source, or a more serious thing, a full bathroom might not have heat, or or a given room. Okay. And then on the cooling side, we want to know that the system is dropping the temperature within a range of 15 to 22 degrees. So this is measured right by the furnace at the return and supply, comparing the return and the supply ductwork. And if it's too low, then that tells us that something's needed. And then the compressor outside should be maintained. And then the typical life for an air conditioner is 15 years. For cooling, older air conditioners use an obsolete refrigerant, R22. So this is the kind of thing we want to let somebody know whether their air conditioning is working or not. But if it's not working, then really the only repair is to replace it. At interiors, we look for evidence of water entry around windows and doors. There's a lot that we do with interiors, including making sure that the windows don't slam down and doors stick and that kind of thing. If there's severe slope on an upper floor, then we go back down and try to make sure that it's not a structural issue that's causing that. A lot of these older homes, settle and slope a little bit, but that's if it's severe. If a room appears to be newly painted, then it could be a cellar covering up. So that would be something that I would suggest that they ask specifically. And I had an inspection canceled during a heavy rainstorm, but I was most of the way over there. So I just went ahead and headed on over. And I saw someone using a shop vac. This was a duplex down. So this was the basement area where they were shop vacuuming water up. And then they ended up putting the inspection back on, and we walked around, and as we stepped on floor tiles, we could see water coming up between the tiles. So that was made me a lot more suspicious when an inspection gets canceled at the last minute. Toilets, they should be secure at the floor and not move side to side, and they should not run continuously. In a condo that I lived in, we had an owner that didn't want to get rid of his antique toilet, and so he allowed it to continue to run. And we estimate that we spent over $1,000 over the course of about 6 months in excess water. And then for stairs, this is really common in basements to not have vertical balusters for safety. This is more for small children or pets. So that's something that we say should be replaced. And then it's also not unusual in homes like ours for the steps to not be uniform in height, but at least people should be aware of it. And then probably the number one thing that comes up on any inspection report is this anti-tip bracket that is required to be behind a stove, and it's almost never back there. And this one actually has it. So. And then for laundry, front load washers often have moisture issues, either replacing the gasket or the washer itself. And then dryer vents are usually this flexible foil, and what you want to have is rigid pipe like you see on the right. And then just a couple of environmental things. Asbestos was very common in many building materials made before 1978. And so anything that I think might have asbestos in it, I take a picture of and suggest that if you want to test it, or if you're able to encapsulate it or remove it, depending on where it is, where it's located. Lead-based paint was really common prior to 78. As long as it's encapsulated, it's considered safe. Lead service lines, we talked about that for water. As long as you have a filter underneath the kitchen sink or anywhere you're getting drinking water, that's a way to get rid of the lead. And then mold, we're always checking for that. It has a distinctive look and smell. And then the EPA says that an area that's less than 9 square feet can usually be successfully cleaned by a homeowner with bleach. And then if it's larger than that, or a bigger issue, then you would call in the professionals. And then one last thing. So fuel oil was used in Chicago in the 40s, and it's something that a lot of bungalows could potentially have. The piping is distinctive, and there's the odor of fuel that would be noticeable. And it can be quite expensive to take them out. If there's one in the basement, that would be quite obvious and you'd know about it, and that would be around $500. To take it out of a crawl space is estimated at $1,500. And then if a fuel tank is buried under the ground, the cost can be $5,000 or more. So it's definitely something that you would want to know about if it was there. And with that, there's my information if anyone has questions or comments.
Great. Thank you so much, Phil. That was an excellent walkthrough. Yeah, it's hard to know all the different things that an inspector is going to actually look at. We have about, we wrap up tonight at 7:30, but Tonika texted saying she might want to show one more thing that happened to her house. So if we have, and we don't have too many questions. So if that's a sort of a shorter clip, then I say go ahead and roll it, and then we'll just go right into questions from there.
Yes, so it's a really quick clip. I'm just going to share my screen and then we can just get right into conversation. Okay. So Phil, I'm curious about this. Optimize video. I want to remove this hide floating. Okay. So this is the issue number 3. And before I play it, I just kind of want to set it up to let you know this is, because I didn't get this fixed yet, this is underneath the pan, the shower pan of my basement bathroom floor, or basement bathroom shower pan. This is underneath it. And so I had an issue with like a rodent, and so the guy was coming here and looking throughout all of the little nooks and crannies and discovered this, and then I had a plumber come and look at it as well after the rodent or the exterminator came and showed me that this was kind of unusual. So this is underneath the shower pan of my basement bathroom.
And right underneath our tub in the basement, whole foundation is cracked. Previous plumbers left it like this. Open.
Oh, wow.
So it's open straight now.
Oh yeah. All through, off the pipes, nothing sealed.
Yeah.
Open access. Any insect bugs, rodents, that goes down.
Yeah, so the sewer piping probably failed or had a leak, and then it eroded the soil underneath. So that's the soil, what was holding the basement floor up, and then now that soil's eroded away.
So is that something that an inspector like would have even looked for, or even, you know, because
Is it what if it's visible, I guess you would, want to try to see anything you can see under, maybe while he's running water in the shower. Was that a floor that was covered, or was that wall there?
so yeah, that wall, that's actually where the in between the water heater, the little space in between the water
Oh,
heater
okay.
and the room. And so there wasn't any issue with the shower working and functioning. It was just, we had a issue with a couple of mice and called an exterminator, and he was just looking around and he noticed it. He said, this underneath your shower pan should not look like this. And so once he told me, that's when I contacted the plumber, and the plumber showed him specifically where to look. And he said, that's completely wrong. It's not supposed to be open like this. So like, that's just up to a homeowner. Like, that's just one of those things that, could happen, because how would an inspector like check for that?
Well, in any area that's accessible, depending on how easy it would be to kind of get down that passageway, or if it was just completely closed off. But if it's not visible, then it wouldn't really be something that you could see. I mean, I don't know if maybe I don't think I do this really very often, and maybe I should start, but some inspectors might get into a shower like that and just kind of like step left to right and forward to back. And I don't, does it rock? I mean
My
that
son
might.
uses it and he seems fine. But this is also a
Yeah.
19-year-old boy, so I don't even think he's paying attention. But no, when I've gone down there, it's sturdy. But I don't know how much more sturdy it should be. But either way, I know one of the repairs that the plumber suggested was, obviously one, just removing all, like in the bathroom and just redoing that whole concrete, get all of the pieces out and redoing it, or using some filler that they can spray under there. But the issue was that they said it's just exposed. They said you should not have exposed concrete and dirt like this.
Well, I mean, you would want to make sure that the plumbing that's causing the erosion is repaired, because it could be the shower piping that's going from below the shower to the connecting to the main drain line is what's damaged. So you would want to make sure that that's all intact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I have a whole library of it. I can just send you my video clip, Phil, and you can use them.
Right.
yeah, and kind of to that point, we had a few people ask that question of like, what's the legal recourse, and like, who do you sort of go after? Would you go after the people who did the renovations? Would you go after the inspector if it's something that would have been, a thing they should have caught, like the attic, ductwork and how all of that was, a thing that would have easily been spotted? What is the recourse there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they would start with the inspector. I know I shouldn't say that, and everyone's gonna, you know, that's an inspector would kill me.
I know,
but-
because I defended my inspector. I was like, well, this wasn't visible. How would he know? So
Yeah, if it's not accessible, and
Visible.
a lot of inspectors carry errors and omissions and general liability insurance, which the insurance company don't want you to, you know, shout that from the rooftop. But it is now required in Illinois, so every home inspector has to have some of that type of insurance. So it would be and home inspectors don't really know everything about how claims work in terms of the industry. Like some people can't get their checkbook out fast enough, and other people are saying, well, you're never getting money out of me. So what typically works is that if it's something that the homeowner believes an inspector should have seen and missed, as opposed to, well, you couldn't have seen because the wall was closed off or this was hidden or something, then it would go into the insurance company as a claim, and then they use their expertise to say, well, yeah, he missed it, or no, this isn't something that is covered or is part of, you know, the agreements. And I mean, obviously, insurance companies aren't in the business to give out money, but they also, you know, need to be fair if, you know, if something was a valid type of claim.
I'll jump
And-
in right quick. Because when you got disclosures on your property when from the seller saying everything was fine, if it seems something that they should have known about, that is your legal recourse, because those documents right there are saying that they have no knowledge of XYZ on the lead disclosure, all of that. So if it seems like something that they should have known in a rehab, then you would have your attorney. That's part of the recourse, which is why you want those disclosures signed by the seller and to look them over to make sure that they are disclosing anything that they know about. But sometimes it may come to something like, if this was this, then they should have known this. So that's usually the recourse after they, you know, like Phil said, they may try the inspector first, but sometimes things are so obvious that, or it's covered up in a way that they should have known, then you can sue them for whatever it takes to remedy the situation to make you whole. So that's usually where you start with. And then that's why us as real estate agents and professionals, we have to make sure that we don't know, because if we could be liable, the brokerages could be liable too, if it seemed like, because a lot of agents are selling their own properties, which is, you know, like Phil hired an inspector to inspect his house. I hired somebody else to sell my house, because when you're that close to it, it gets to be a little tricky situation. But the recourse from that end is making sure you have those disclosures, that they're all signed, and just usually they send those over to you before you sign the contract, but demand those and look those over, because oftentimes some of that stuff, like Tonika, like some of that stuff you knew that the seller knew about and was just covering up. So it's just obvious. And so that's the recourse that you have to go after the actual seller.
There is somebody on here too that's saying that their inspector actually caught the exact thing that you just showed, Tonika. Sorry, my cat is joining the call. Took him a while, actually. He's been in, I think, literally every single webinar in the last 3 years, but yeah, she can't, or they can't remember the name of the inspector, but they had the same erosion under the basement slab thing, and maybe it was just visible in that case or whatever too, but just wanted to say that. Let's see. Sorry, I was going through some of these and there's some duplicates. Just to clarify this one point, because it comes up in a lot of our webinars too. Someone asked if the city can help pay for the replacement of lead pipes in your home. And my understanding is no, but that it has to be in the street, right? For the city to cover anything like that.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't believe that the city can cover any lead pipes in your home though. Okay. Somebody on here, Justin, maybe just to get your sort of opinion on this, Phil, they wrote, they think that sewer line inspections need to start being standard for home buyers, that a proper sewer line camera inspection it's typically a separate service, and some home inspectors offer it, but most buyers, they know, only have it, most buyers I know who hired one to do it only have a very, very short scopes and just check the main clean out. Sarah, this might be a question for you too, but do you guys have any opinions about that? Or are there inspectors who also use proper sewer line cameras that go a little deeper?
Well, I actually, so, I mean, it is a nice thing to have, because I think some villages was trying, I can't think of which village was trying to make that a standard for the home buyer. The problem is when you make that standard, it increases the cost for the home buyer, and sometimes that could be part of the cost that they may not have to, because they can get to be very pricey, a whole camera inspection. But I mean, you kind of tell them, because there's one hand, like if you don't have the money to do that, maybe you should maybe rethink buying a home, but sometimes you don't go into thinking, like if you have a proper inspection done and maybe that's noted, because then it comes into, like there's been conversations about if you make it standard, there's going to be a certain class of people that may just be even further discriminated against buying a home because the cost to just get even further out of reach. And so you make them available for them, but because it can be $1,000 for a scope, in addition to your inspection, in addition to your closing costs, in addition to things like that. And so you just want to make sure it's in reach. And yes, I didn't have an inspection done because I'm a realtor, so I knew to have my HVAC guy. I had all the professionals come and do their own separate inspection, as opposed to one. I had to they gave me a brief inspection, which was fine, but I had like a window person because I was going to rehab my house, so I had all those come out, and they did it for little or no. It was almost the cost of probably an inspection from everybody, and so. I get both sides of that, but you don't want to bar anybody from their dream of home ownership by just putting the reach cost that far out of reach for them.
So maybe it needs to be some like little grant program for that kind of inspection, because I know that would have saved me.
Yeah, I mean,
probably
the water sewer line in Chicago is what, 20,000, I think. $15,000-$20,000 or something, like if you do
to repair it,
and whole, if you go into the street. But some part of it, some of the city. And how much did yours cost, Tonika? I may have missed that in the presentation. Like,
well, I haven't gotten it repaired yet, but the cost to have it routed to the main line, the basement bathroom toilet line that's going to the catch basin, to have that route to the main line, that's like a $9,000 job.
Yeah. But then I guess to KK Go, I don't know if that's his real name. To his point, I guess if a sewer, would that have caught it? That probably would have caught some of it just to be sure, and then maybe that would have saved that either that cost, or you may have just looked at going in a different direction.
Right.
So it just
I probably would have got another house.
yes.
well, I can speak to the sewer camera thing. So a lot of inspectors are starting to do sewer scope as an ancillary service for which they charge separately, because the sewer camera people are interested in having home inspectors buy their equipment. And it's my understanding, you can buy something cheap or you can buy something good, but it's that a proper sewer camera that's going to do what you need it to do, like get you all the way out to the main connection outside, you're looking at $9,000 or $10,000. I mean, you can buy a $3,000 camera, but it's like pushing a wet noodle through. It just isn't. You're not able to do it. And for me, it would add time for somebody that's. I'm already pressed. Like I got to do this inspection in 3 hours, and there's so much I want to look at. I'm adding, this extra thing. So I always recommend a sewer scope, especially if a home is more than 40 or 50 years old, or if you look out front and there's a giant tree. But several realtors that I work with kind of in the Oak Park area, because all the homes are older out here, it's just automatic, and they have a different camera. They have a plumber come while I'm there, and they spend their half hour during my 3 hours, and it's like $300, I think, is what it could cost, or it can be maybe more expensive. But They just
Yeah.
do it, these plumbers do it as a flat fee because they're getting so much business from these, from these agents.
Yeah, I know
We only have,
that scope definitely, that was my plumbing 101 lesson that they both gave me. And they taught me about, we watched on the screen as it was going through. They taught me everything about exactly what you just said, Phil, about the trees and about how the roots are looking for water, and how my front main line had a whole bunch of roots in there. And it was just an amazing.
yeah, we hear that a whole lot about the roots and the, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We
if-
only have about 2 minutes left. So I just want to get another question or two in, if, just so we can hear a couple more things. This is just something that I thought was kind of interesting. Maria wrote that, City of Chicago doesn't cover lead pipes inside your property. However, a group of guys is coming to her home tomorrow to remove some asbestos covered pipes in the basement. And she said she's afraid they might be trying to take her home away for not repairing the problem when she first bought it in 1991. But that everything's painted and looks perfect when you're first buying it. Is there any sort of recourse for, if you do have, just to speak to, because a lot of people don't want to let city people into their homes ever because they're afraid they're going to get huge fines for the things that they do see that aren't up to code. Can Phil or Sarah speak to that?
Oh, yeah, I guess I don't know the city of Chicago as well, but my general sense of municipal inspectors around like Maywood or Forest Park or Berwyn, that they just want it to get repaired. So they're not really looking to be punitive of, oh, we're going to get you in trouble for this. But what can sometimes happen is you are doing a permit for a basement bathroom, but then they say, okay, well, that's fine. But then anything related to plumbing needs to get upgraded too, as part of this permit for the basement. So they don't care about your electrical as part of that.
Yeah, got it. I know in the city, I know there's a lot of like, when they're doing like the water meter program and stuff, they were like, listen, don't worry, we're coming into your house. Like, we're like, we have the blinders on. They basically were just like, we will like fumble around through the darkness just to find this one spot. So we're not looking for anything else because otherwise no one was going to let them in, So, yeah, I think
I'm
that's
just looking at these two comments, Curtis and Manny, they've commented, they have a lead, equity lead service line replacement program that's totally free for low income homeowners. And he put a number 312-744-1780. So,
excellent. Yeah, that just came in.
and
Thanks.
one, I guess Curtis, he says he's currently in the process, it's free, and application is comprehensive. I'm sure Tonika has never been scared of a comprehensive application.
Yeah. Great. So again, that number, the City of Chicago program, it's 312-744-1780. And again, we're going to have this recorded and send it out to everybody who signed up tonight. So
he said they're replacing the lead pipes outside that lead to the meter in his basement.
okay. Yep. Great.
Yeah.
And then Phil, we've got somebody asking for your number. I know you had it up earlier, but if you want to plug it one more time.
Oh, it's 773-469-3390.
Great.
Or
All
Google
right.
me.
Yeah, and we can also put that up in the follow-up email as well. We can include Phil's information for you guys. Wonderful. All right. Well, we are a minute over, but I think we did pretty well with that. 4 people tonight piping in. So 4 people who like to talk. So at least 3 of us. Phil's kind of verdict is still out. You're new to this crowd anyway. So so thank you, all of you, so much for sharing your expertise and your experiences. All of it's super helpful. And again, we're going to send everybody a follow-up email with some additional information for you. Phil, do you mind if we put your slide deck in that as well, like a PDF of that for folks?
Sure, yeah.
Great text in there, folks can go back and look at as well. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Go take a walk if you can. It's so beautiful out still. And have a lovely evening. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.